Have you ever wondered why some people effortlessly connect with others while many struggle despite their best efforts? What if I told you that ancient biblical wisdom holds the key to mastering influence, building meaningful relationships, and achieving extraordinary success in every interaction? Are you ready to discover the secret that transformed a shy farm boy from Missouri into America's foremost authority on human relations? A secret so powerful yet so simple that it's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Today we're exploring the revolutionary wisdom of Dale Carnegie and the timeless biblical principles that changed everything for him and could change everything for you. This isn't just another communication tutorial. This is about the fundamental laws that govern all human connections, wisdom so unwavering that Carnegie built his entire philosophy around it. People respond not to logic, but to genuine interest, appreciation, and understanding. Imagine having the ability to connect with anyone, anywhere. Imagine knowing with absolute certainty that your words and actions could open doors, resolve conflicts, and inspire loyalty. What would you do differently? How would you communicate if you truly understood that every conversation, every gesture, every moment of genuine listening has the power to transform your relationships and your destiny? The answer to these questions could be worth millions to you in opportunities, partnerships, and life satisfaction. Are you ready to discover what Dale Carnegie knew that most people never will? Dale Carnegie was born in 1888 to a struggling farm family in Maryville, Missouri. His humble beginnings shaped his understanding of hard work and the value of human connections. As a young man, Carnegie struggled with debilitating shyness and insecurity. After graduating from college, he tried various careers, from selling bacon and soap to acting and teaching, all while battling his fears of public speaking and social interaction. His transformation began when he started teaching public speaking classes at the YMCA in New York City, where he discovered that many successful professionals shared his same fears. What distinguished Carnegie was his extraordinary ability to synthesize biblical wisdom into practical techniques. His soft-spoken, authentic style masked the revolutionary power of his message. Unlike many self-improvement teachers who relied on manipulation tactics, Carnegie offered substantive principles that produced lasting relationships built on genuine respect. His 1936 book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has sold over 30 million copies worldwide and has been translated into virtually every known language. His influence extends through generations of leaders, including Warren Buffett, Lee, Iacocca, and countless Fortune 500 executives who credit his teachings as fundamental to their success. Until his passing in 1955, Carnegie remained dedicated to the idea that success comes not from technical knowledge alone, but from the ability to express ideas, assume leadership, and arouse enthusiasm among people. The art of influence through biblical wisdom spans millennia, forming one of the most enduring traditions in human communication. In the book of Proverbs, we find timeless insights like, "A gentle answer turns away wrath," and "Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body." Principles that would later become cornerstones of Carnegie's approach. The gospel teachings emphasize listening before speaking, showing genuine care for others, and the power of encouragement, all fundamental to Carnegie's philosophy. Across the ancient scriptures, we find strikingly similar observations about human nature and influence. Biblical wisdom notes that the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing, while Jesus demonstrated the power of asking questions, showing appreciation, and meeting people where they were. These principles formed the foundation of Carnegie's approach to human relations. What makes this biblical wisdom so enduring is its observable truth across diverse societies and time periods. Every advanced civilization independently discovered the same patterns of human interaction. That influence comes more readily through appreciation than criticism, through understanding than judgment, through listening than speaking. The brilliance of biblical teachings lies in their recognition that human nature, despite cultural differences, responds to certain approaches consistently. This timeless wisdom formed the perfect foundation for Dale Carnegie's modern philosophy of human relations in an increasingly complex American society. Dale Carnegie's genius lay in his ability to extract biblical wisdom and apply it as a practical system of influence accessible to everyday Americans, regardless of background or faith tradition. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you, Carnegie would often say. This statement perfectly encapsulates his reframing of biblical principles about human connection, positioning them as practical tools rather than merely religious observations. Ready to transform your relationships with timeless wisdom? Subscribe to our channel now for weekly insights inspired by Dale Carnegie and biblical principles of communication. Click the subscribe button below and join our community of influence-minded individuals. Carnegie's interpretation centered on what he called working with human nature rather than against it, emphasizing that our daily interactions function as deposits in an emotional bank account that inevitably yields returns in cooperation and goodwill. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do, he famously stated. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. This perspective reflected biblical teachings on forgiveness and understanding, placing the power of influence firmly in the hands of the individual. Unlike some communication approaches that emphasize techniques alone, Carnegie's philosophy balanced practical methods with genuine respect for others, an approach deeply rooted in the biblical concept of treating others as you wish to be treated. What distinguished Carnegie's teaching was his emphasis on authenticity. The royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most, he taught. This insight transformed biblical wisdom into a practical formula for connecting with others in modern America. He observed that most people focus entirely on what they want to say next, rather than truly hearing others, a direct contradiction to the biblical wisdom that we should be quick to listen, slow to speak. Through countless seminars across America, Carnegie helped people understand that extraordinary relationships don't emerge from clever tactics, but from sincere appreciation of others maintained over time. The harvest of influence, he taught, was available to anyone willing to plant the seeds of genuine interest with patience and consistency, echoing the biblical principle that we reap what we sow. Dale Carnegie recognized that truly meaningful influence required application across multiple dimensions of American life. He identified 5 crucial territories where biblical principles of human connection manifest most powerfully. In professional settings, Carnegie taught that advancement begins with how we approach colleagues and superiors. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it, he observed, reflecting the biblical wisdom of seeking peace whenever possible. He encouraged Americans to focus on common ground, acknowledge others' perspectives, and develop the habit of making others feel important, planting seeds that would grow into career opportunities and professional respect. In personal relationships, Carnegie emphasized quality of attention over quantity of words. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language, became one of his most quoted insights, reflecting the biblical principle of honoring the individual. He taught that deep connections require genuine investment, remembering personal details, celebrating others' achievements, and approaching relationships with sincerity. The harvest of strong personal bonds, he noted, often arrived in the form of loyalty and support during life's inevitable challenges. Regarding leadership, Carnegie was equally practical, drawing from biblical models of servant leadership. Long before emotional intelligence became a business buzzword, he advocated for leading by example and inspiration rather than authority alone. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise, he would remind audiences, echoing biblical teachings on encouragement. Simple practices like recognizing others' contributions, involving team members in decisions, and allowing others to save face were seeds that yielded engagement, innovation, and commitment. Perhaps most distinctive was Carnegie's emphasis on self-development as a foundation for influence. Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage, he stated, reflecting the biblical principle that faith without works is dead. In a distinctly American tradition of self-improvement, he advocated conquering fear through action, developing genuine confidence through competence, and cultivating the habit of enthusiasm. He recommended practicing public speaking regularly, noting that this discipline alone could transform a person's presence within months. Finally, Carnegie addressed conflict resolution, not through formulaic techniques, but through encouraging understanding before seeking to be understood, finding areas of agreement, and letting others feel their ideas are valuable. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive, he advised, recognizing that influence requires creating safety rather than threat, a principle directly aligned with biblical teachings on peacemaking and gentleness. Transform your relationships through the power of biblical wisdom. If you've been inspired by Dale Carnegie's application of these timeless principles, subscribe now to receive our exclusive content on implementing them in modern American life. Hit subscribe and join thousands who are already experiencing the rewards of these ancient teachings. One of Dale Carnegie's most valuable contributions to American communication philosophy was his honest treatment of time in the relationship-building process. Unlike those promoting quick influence hacks, Carnegie acknowledged the natural development of trust and rapport, a principle deeply rooted in biblical wisdom about patience and persistence. You cannot win a friend in a week or a month, he taught. It takes the experience of many months, perhaps years, to set the roots of friendship deep enough to survive the heat of adverse circumstance. This insight addressed the fundamental challenge that causes many Americans to abandon relationship-building efforts before seeing results, the invisible early growth happening beneath the surface. Carnegie often illustrated this principle through examples familiar to his American audiences. Don't be afraid of enemies who attack you. Be afraid of the friends who flatter you, he cautioned, acknowledging that genuine relationships require honesty that may sometimes feel uncomfortable, reflecting the biblical proverb that faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. He understood that early in any relationship, whether building a business partnership, developing a mentorship, or improving a marriage, progress often remains fragile and requires consistent nurturing. This period requires what he called sincere interest rather than manipulation, genuine curiosity about others that unfolds naturally rather than forcing quick intimacy. What separated Carnegie from many contemporary influence teachers was his emphasis on character development as a cornerstone of lasting influence. When dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotion, he insisted. This perspective reframes the relationship-building period not as a series of techniques, but as essential personal growth where empathy forms, mirroring the biblical emphasis on developing the fruits of the Spirit. The most valuable connections, Carnegie taught, often require the longest cultivation. His teachings encouraged Americans to adopt long-term thinking in their relationships in a culture increasingly focused on immediate results, reminding them that the most valuable influences often come to those patient enough to nurture connections through multiple seasons. The brilliance of Dale Carnegie's teaching lies in its practicality. He transformed abstract biblical principles into concrete daily practices accessible to Americans from all walks of life. Central to his approach was the power of genuine appreciation, what he called making others feel important. Carnegie advised specific practices like using people's names, offering sincere compliments on specific actions, and showing authentic interest in others' concerns. These practices create what he termed a reservoir of goodwill that naturally influences others toward cooperation. Professional application begins with Carnegie's famous principle: talk in terms of the other person's interest. Before important meetings or negotiations, he recommended researching the other party's priorities and framing proposals accordingly. This simple adjustment has helped countless American professionals gain support for their ideas regardless of their position. In personal relationships, Carnegie recommended daily investments like active listening without interruption asking thoughtful questions, and what he called giving honest appreciation, acknowledging specific qualities or actions rather than general flattery. These small seeds, consistently planted, yield rich harvests of deeper connection. For public speaking, Carnegie created the magic formula, starting with an incident, telling a story, making a point, and giving the benefit. This structure, practiced consistently, transforms even nervous speakers into compelling communicators. He similarly advocated small, sustainable improvements in conversation skills rather than dramatic but unnatural changes. Start with where you are, he advised, and practice daily. Perhaps most powerfully, Carnegie taught the practice of keeping a relationship journal, recording names, personal details, and interests of important contacts. This habit creates what he called a genuine foundation for connection that accelerates trust by demonstrating sincere interest. Through these practical applications, Carnegie demonstrated that extraordinary influence comes not from innate charisma, but from simple, people-centered practices implemented consistently. While Dale Carnegie's interpretation of biblical principles offers powerful wisdom, honest examination requires acknowledging its limitations and potential misapplications in contemporary American culture. Critics note that an overemphasis on agreeableness can sometimes compromise authentic communication or lead to conflict avoidance. Carnegie's philosophy emerged during America's industrial age, when organizational hierarchy was more clearly defined. In today's more collaborative workplace, factors like direct feedback, constructive disagreement, and situational leadership significantly impact one's ability to influence, regardless of how pleasantly they communicate. The principles also face challenges in contexts where power dynamics aren't straightforward. Some individuals faithfully apply Carnegie's teachings, yet face setbacks due to implicit bias, cultural differences, or organizational politics that disrupt even the most skillful relationship-building efforts. Without nuanced application, the whole principles risk implying that influence failures result solely from poor interpersonal skills, potentially breeding self-doubt rather than systemic awareness. Additionally, some critics observe that American culture's individualistic interpretation can neglect the communal dimensions present in many biblical teachings, which emphasized harmonious community as much as personal advancement. Perhaps most importantly, Carnegie himself acknowledged the principle's limitations. No matter what happens, always be yourself, he would advise, recognizing that authentic influence requires congruence between actions and character. The wisdom lies in applying these principles as expressions of genuine character rather than mere techniques. These limitations don't invalidate Carnegie's approach, but invite a more sophisticated application, one that balances relationship skills with personal integrity and realistic expectations about human complexity. The most mature practitioners of Carnegie's philosophy embrace both its empowering truth and its necessary qualifications in a diverse society. Ready to master the biblical principles of influence in your relationships? Subscribe now to receive our exclusive content on developing the character and skills that lead to lasting connections. Join our community today and learn how to transform casual acquaintances into powerful relationships that can change your life. Dale Carnegie's greatest contribution to American personal development may be his ability to bridge biblical wisdom with modern application, creating a philosophy that transcends both cultural and temporal boundaries. The power of biblical principles about human influence in Carnegie's hands becomes not merely religious observations but a practical framework for navigating life's relationships with intention and wisdom. You can close more business in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years trying to get people interested in you, he often said. This simple statement encapsulates the heart of his message, that we participate actively in creating our relationships through present choices. Perhaps what makes Carnegie's interpretation so enduring is its balanced perspective. Unlike purely technique-driven approaches that focus exclusively on results, Carnegie emphasized character development as the foundation for lasting influence. Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, he insisted, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. This insight shifts focus from merely acquiring influence tactics to developing qualities, empathy, sincere interest, appreciation, and humility that naturally attract positive connections. As we navigate an increasingly complex and rapidly changing world, the timeless wisdom of biblical principles about human connection offers a stabilizing perspective. It reminds us that despite technological and cultural shifts, certain principles remain constant. People respond to genuine interest more than clever tactics. Names matter more than numbers. Appreciation motivates more than criticism. Listening influences more than speaking. These truths, illuminated by Carnegie's unique ability to communicate with both simplicity and depth, continue to guide seekers of meaningful connection decades after he first shared them. His legacy invites each of us to examine how we're approaching our relationships today and to cultivate the patience and authenticity needed to nurture them to full harvest. The biblical wisdom that transformed Carnegie's communication ability, and through him, millions of lives across America, remains as relevant today as it was centuries ago. By embracing these principles, you too can develop the rare ability to win friends and influence people in ways that honor both yourself and others. The question now is not whether these principles work. History and experience have proven they do. The question is whether you will commit to applying them consistently in your life. Will you be one of the few who discovers what Dale Carnegie knew, that the secret to connection isn't found in manipulation or technique, but in the genuine application of timeless biblical wisdom? The choice is yours, and the potential reward is a life of meaningful relationships and extraordinary influence.